I'm Dr. Alan Brandis, and I'm here today to talk to you about the recovery process and difficulty in intimate relationships that is often a consequence of substance abuse problems. One of the most common complaints of recovering people concerns their close relationships, both family and intimate relationships with a partner. The process of dealing with a drug or alcohol problem is difficult and often takes a long time. Many years ago, I worked in a call center for a little while at a major recovery hospital. And the statistics at that point were the average length of time between the beginning of a problem and when somebody first called to get help was 8 years. So people live with this for a long time, and the damage that it does to the family and to their close relationships is usually quite significant. But I'm here today to talk about that primary intimate relationship that people have with a partner. People who are in recovery, in the beginning especially, have to focus a lot on themselves. So we usually recommend that when a person gets sober and begins to participate in a recovery community, like one of the 12-step programs, we usually recommend that the partner attend one of the family group programs such as Al-Anon. There are very different kinds of issues that they have, although there's similarities, but we recommend that they each begin to deal with their issues within their own groups of similar people, and this is why. We can think of intimacy and closeness as something that involves kind of multiple layers of an individual. There's an outer layer, which is kind of the public layer. That's the stuff that other people know about you just from being around you and observing you. They can hear your voice, they know how tall you are, your weight, all of those external characteristics that help people just identify you as being you. Then, if people get to know you a little bit, there's a layer that I call the acquaintance layer. That's what people might know from interacting with you a little bit, say somebody at the grocery store or some of the people that you might know at work on a casual basis. You might talk to them a little bit about your family or about sports or about other things that are of minor concern, but they won't know you very well. Then there is the friendship layer. Now friends are people that you choose to spend time with. They're people who are important to you in different ways. One way that I sometimes illustrate the difference between an acquaintance and a friend is that, let's say you go to an activity, say you go bowling. If you go with an acquaintance and the bowling alley is closed, you'll pick another day to come back when the bowling alley is open because the purpose of going there was to go bowling. But if you go with a friend and the bowling alley is closed, you'll pick another activity to do because the purpose of going was to spend time with that person. So there's a process by which people progress from the public layer to an acquaintanceship, to a friendship, and then there's a layer of intimacy. And people who we're intimate with, and I'm not talking about sexual, I'm talking about emotional intimacy and other kinds of closeness, might include parents, might include a spouse, might include children, because those are people who know you really well. They know your issues, they know your temperament, they know strengths and weaknesses that you have, and so on. And we're a lot more selective about letting people in to that layer. There's actually also a layer that I call the unknown, which is things about ourselves that we may not be fully aware of, and that affects how people function during a problem with drugs and alcohol. When a person has a problem with alcohol or drugs, a number of things happen to them. One thing is that the range of emotions that they're able to experience becomes constricted. Consequently, their ability to share and connect with other people is limited. their relationships with other people who are important to them can become affected by the difficulty when the person with a substance abuse problem is irresponsible, acts unusually, or may become angry or in other ways difficult to deal with, affects the relationship with their family and with their partner. So actually one of the things that happens is that the area that's unknown even to themselves becomes bigger. The intimacy is interfered with, so that layer shrinks. The friendship layer tends to be diminished as well, because mostly the only people that they continue to be friends with are maybe drinking buddies or people who are engaged in the same kind of substance abuse that they are. Now, from the point of view of someone who's trying to maintain a close and loving relationship with that person, a similar process happens. Trying to love and connect with someone who's distant, who is disappointing you, letting you down in different ways, may behave erratically or irresponsibly, is very difficult. And often the spouse or family of the person with the substance abuse problem feels unloved in return. They feel disregarded. They feel that their efforts to love and support the person are going unreciprocated. So in a similar way to the person with the substance abuse problem, the loved ones also shrink the intimacy layer, may also reduce their ability to have friends because they're frustrated and disappointed a lot of the time. It affects their self-esteem. Of course, loving someone who seems like they don't love you back makes you question whether it's your fault, whether you're doing something wrong, and so on. And often the spouse or intimate partner of the person with the substance abuse comes to feel in some way that they're responsible for monitoring and trying to reduce the substance abuse. Of course, we know that that never works. It's really not possible. But the so-called codependent person comes to feel that they're in some ways the guardian of the substance abuser's sobriety. This enmeshes the relationship and interferes with people having clear boundaries, and of course it engenders resentment from the person with the substance abuse problem, and that reduces the intimacy between the two of them as well. In order to repair this process, what happens sometimes is that once the person with substance abuse problem gets sober, they don't understand that there's an internal process of repair that needs to take place. They need to learn to be honest with themselves and with other people. Honesty is really a foundation of any sort of intimate relationship. If someone has had a substance abuse problem for a long time, they have not only lied to other people, but really lied to themselves, minimized, justified, rationalized a lot of things, not just their substance abuse problem, but made excuses for all kinds of negative behaviors, externalized blame. And that's why when you look at the foundation of the 12-step approach, for example, it's really radical honesty. Honesty about yourself is really the only thing that repairs that sort of lifestyle of deception which develops over the course of a substance abuse problem. But because the substance abuser feels like, well, now I'm sober, so let's get back to normal and the way things are, not always so easy to do. Number one, they have to develop rigorous honesty with themselves. They have to learn to take responsibility for their actions in the present and also their actions in the past. The spouse or partner or family of the substance abuser is still going to have a great deal of difficulty with trust, with believing that this time it's for real, because usually there's a history that involves the substance abuser making promises, maybe going on the wagon for a while, but things always creep back and end up as bad or worse than they were before. So there are a lot of issues with trust, and the family has to go through their own process of learning to trust again, which is why we recommend that they go to a support group so they can talk to people who have experienced similar things and are working to repair their internal damage so that they can resume healthy relationships themselves and with their substance abusing person. After each person in the intimate relationship has worked on themselves and developed the ability to be honest and to trust, only then can the relationship be worked on directly. And of course, often we recommend that at that point, the couple get into some sort of relationship counseling, because that's the point at which working on those things will make sense and may actually yield some significant benefit. Of course, one of the things that we do here at Atlanta Area Psychological Associates, we encourage you to call us or come in and talk with us about how we can help repair your intimate relationship.